Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about autofocus. So all modern cameras have autofocus. To a hobbyist or consumer, autofocus is probably the single most important feature of a camera and lens. It makes your life so much easier. And pretty much all the modern mirrorless cameras offer enough autofocus to meet a consumer's needs, unless, of course, you have a need for sport and wildlife. You have a family member, your kids play soccer, you want to take a lot of photos in sharp focus, or if you're lucky enough to go to Africa every year for a safari trip, you want to shoot the lions and leopards in action, then of course you may want to invest in a professional grade sport and wildlife camera like the Sony A9, Sony A1 flagship series, or Nikon Z8, Nikon Z9. For an average consumer, you just take pictures on vacations, the kids' graduation ceremony, and that kind of stuff. A consumer grade camera will meet your needs no problem because the modern camera's autofocus is so good. Here's a picture of my daughter at beach of Cape Cod, and I took this picture with my old Nikon D810 DSLR camera, and the image is in sharp focus. My daughter was moving around quickly, and you can see that even with the old camera, old lenses, DSLR era, you can still nail autofocus for moving subjects if the subject is not moving too quickly. So with a modern mirrorless camera, it's going to be a walk in the park. The modern mirrorless camera is so intelligent, it will not lose focus, unless, of course, for a consumer-grade camera, your subject is moving very quickly, and your camera is from older generation, like Nikon Z5 or Z6. You will have some struggles, and you will miss some shots, but then again, it's not a deal breaker. So this is modern autofocus is so good to meet the needs of average consumer. Now I'm going to talk about how autofocus works. How does it work? There are two pieces. One is the lens. It's the muscle. The lens has to move the glass elements backward or forward to achieve autofocus. And the second part is the camera body. Your camera body is the brain. Unlike DSLR cameras, the mirrorless camera have the image on the sensor already, and in your camera there's a powerful chip, multiple computer chips to analyze the image. So for a modern mirrorless camera, there's no such thing as front focus or back focus. It's always in focus once it's achieved. So you don't have to worry about the old DSLR lens adapt to the modern camera body and still has back focus. Nope, they don't exist anymore. The problem solved. And the chip will analyze the image, be able to tell, oh, this is a human face, that's a cat, dogs. Oh, this is a building, this is a car. So depending on your camera model, the newer cameras have powerful AI chips, can recognize a number of things that most of the time for me, I don't even care about what's in the it is focused on, because I press the shutter release, the camera will automatically pick the thing I want to pick, like 95% of the time. So 95% of the time, I just frame the shots. The only thing I worry about is the composition. Oh, what is in the foreground? What is in the background? What's the color? What's the shape? What are the leading lines? So it's really, the focusing has become an afterthought. I don't worry about it most of the time because the computer in the camera is so smart that it can figure out what I want to focus on most of the time. If I need to specify what I want to focus on, I anticipate, oh, the camera may not focus on the thing I want to focus on. So in the frame, there are 5 faces. I just like John better than Thomas. I can just press the button on the rear of the camera, this little AF lock button, and then I let the focus box be on top of, say, John's face. And then it doesn't matter, as long as John's face inside of my frame, the focus will stick. That's how good modern cameras are. The autofocus is so good. So when you choose a camera, the brain is extremely important. You need the camera body to figure out what to focus on. The chip inside, like this XBeat 7, this is the chip inside of Nikon ZF, is very important. The modern cameras have more modern chips, and more modern chips have more processing power. The older generation XBeat 6 using Nikon Z6 is only a tenth of power, as powerful as the version 7. So version 6 has a tenth of the computing power. So it cannot recognize cat's face or dog face. It can only recognize human eyes. And this ZF can recognize a whole bunch of stuff. And also, the possibility is endless. the camera today, the latest flagship cameras from Canon, they can anticipate things. They can, based on the movement of a subject, anticipate where the subject is going to move next. This is called a generative AI. Just like the ChatGPT, it can talk like people, right? So this technology, generative AI, will sooner or later be used in modern mirrorless cameras, and autofocus will be so intelligent. It will offer so much speed and accuracy that it will meet pretty much everybody's needs. Yeah, it will be so good. So the possibility is endless. Okay, so I will again scroll down to show some of the autofocus metrics that you may want to pay attention to. Detection range, -10 to +19 EV. What does this mean? This means that in very dark situations, the 0 is the average exposure, the average brightness of the environment. -1 is 1/2 of the brightness. -2 is 1/4 of the brightness. The -10 is 2 to the -10th power of the brightness. It's a very dark situation. And +19 is 2 to the 19th power of the brightness. It's a very bright situation. Under extremely dark, extremely bright situation, you can still autofocus. Your autofocus still works. This is amazing. For an average consumer, this is completely irrelevant. Unless you live the life of a ninja, you go out in the night, pitch dark, without moon, and you carry a camera snapshot in a dark street corner, you shouldn't worry about this detection range. Next, focusing point. Not every focusing point is created equal, but in general, the more focusing point, the more dense they are, because the full frame sensor, right? And this spread out, covering the whole sensor, the better. So 273 focusing point is totally adequate for average consumer. Nikon ZF has great autofocus, not as good as pro level cameras like Sony A9 III. It has like I don't know how many focusing point. It can shoot at 120 frames per second. It's a ridiculous sports camera. It's not as good a professional camera, but for average consumer, again, unless your family do sports or you go on African safaris frequently, this should meet your needs no problem. Almost 300 focusing point. This is also quite irrelevant. Now, AF area modes, this is quite standard. All the cameras have their own kind of different. Canon, Sony, Nikon have their own tricks. Yeah. So these are autofocus on the camera body. Sometimes the autofocus algorithm can be upgraded with a firmware upgrade. That's why this processor is very important, because the processor is a piece of hardware like XBeat7. If your camera has a very powerful processor, even if the software is not very intelligent, with a firmware upgrade you will get better performance. But if you're using an old camera, XBeat6, it will not be able to exploit modern algorithms because there's not enough processing power. Okay, now let's go back to the lens. Autofocus of the lens. Lens, as I mentioned, is the muscle. Old DSLR lenses, some lenses don't even have the motor to drive focus. They have no motor to drive the glasses. The screw type of autofocus motor is actually inside the camera body, like Nikon D810. It has a actual driver inside the camera body. But all modern camera lenses have their engine or their motor inside the camera lens, and they use all kinds of technologies. You need to look at the specific lenses. In general, the professional grade modern camera lenses have very fast and silent autofocus. They can move the heavy glasses elements backward and forward very quietly and quickly. You need to, just as a consumer, you don't have to worry about those, except a number of camera lenses. You have to read the individual lens review, like the Sony 50mm f1.8. That's a plastic lens with a noisy autofocus. If you're shooting video, the noise will be captured by your camera's built-in microphone. You will probably have to use external microphone, and that lens very plasticky with the horrible bokeh and not sharp wide open. It was sold for like $250. I think it's worth only $100. Yeah, so not all the lenses are created equal. So pay attention to the focusing noise. Yeah. Okay, so that's my video on autofocus. Thank you.